Cheers and happy Friday, beer runners. It is certainly a strange time out there in the real world, and I am going to answer a question that I've been getting again and again and again over the last few weeks, and that is, A, is it safe to be running during this quarantine or these stay-at-home orders? Yes, but B, more importantly, how do you stay safe when you're out on your runs during these crazy times, during this pandemic, when everyone is telling you, make sure that you quarantine yourself, stay inside. How can you safely continue your running routine or start a new running routine? How can you safely go out into the world to continue your running activity? So wanted to tackle that today. So for this week's Friday 5, I'm going to focus on the 5 ways you can make sure that you are maintaining your safety and maintaining your running routine safely during this quarantine coronavirus pandemic. So the first question that I want to tackle is one that I've gotten a lot, and that is it necessary for you to wear a mask when you are out running if you are running outside in public? It's hard to give like a brief answer on that. Obviously, you should always be abiding by the recommendations set forth by the CDC, but basically what they're saying is the mask is a preventative measure if it's impossible for you to take into account the social distancing guidelines that they're recommending. So obviously the maintaining 6 feet of distance between you and another person, if it's impossible for you to avoid that when you're out on your run, then yes, absolutely you should be wearing a mask or some kind of cloth face covering. Again, it's just that extra level of protection. Is it 100%? Absolutely not, but anything you can do to prevent the spread or better protect yourself from coming in contact with the coronavirus is what you should be doing. So for me personally, the reason I said it's kind of tough to give a straight answer is I do not feel the necessity to wear a mask when I'm out on my run, only because I am running at a time when there's nobody else outside. I'll run for an hour outside around our neighborhoods, and I'll maybe see 1 or 2 other people out on the street, and it's very easy for me to avoid those individuals. If you are running in a much more crowded, much more populated area, then absolutely I would recommend wearing some kind of face covering. Personally, if I was going to go out on a run and I was worried about it, I would probably wear a buff. I've heard that these are not necessarily the most recommended thing just because they are pretty thin. The CDC recommends multiple layers of cotton just to help build up that protective layer. But again, like I said, at the times when I'm running, I'm not coming in contact with people, so I'm not as worried about that. It's just an extra precaution, something to take into account. But obviously the number one thing to do is to avoid that contact in the first place, to avoid the need for a mask. So just not putting yourself in harm's way or putting yourself in a position where you might need to have some kind of blockage to prevent the spread of coronavirus. So keeping social distancing in mind, keeping that 6 foot of distance even when you're out on your run is number one. If it's impossible to abide by that, then absolutely look at wearing some kind of face covering, some kind of mask when you're on your runs. So I mentioned it briefly during that first part, but my number one tip for maintaining safety and being able to continue your running routine in a safe manner throughout the coronavirus spread is to avoid high traffic times or high traffic places. Obviously, the number one precaution or preventative measure you can take is avoiding people in general or avoiding any kind of possible exposure to the coronavirus. So for me, that means running very early in the morning. Even though we are now living this work from home life, I could sleep in if I wanted to. I don't have to worry about my commute. It's much easier for me to just get out of bed and go right to work. I still am getting up at about 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning to get up, get out the door, get my run in when most people are still sleeping, so I don't have to worry about running into people. I don't have to worry about heavily trafficked street. I'm not worrying about not being able to abide by those social distancing precautions. So number one tip is to pick those times where you can run when you're avoiding those high traffic times. So early in the morning, maybe even late at night. I think it's probably busier at night. People are staying up later nowadays, so as hard as it is, if you can get up early in the morning, that's going to be your best bet. And the other thing is, if at all possible, just avoid those high traffic areas, parks, busy trails, things like that where you know people are going to be congregating, especially as the weather starts to get nicer. Just stay away from those. Even though the scenery would be nice, it's better to stay safe, stay away from people so that you can, again, maintain safely this running routine that you want to continue through this coronavirus. Number 3 has been a tough one for me. As hard as it is, it can be beneficial to go music or audio free, just again so you can hear what's going on around you, especially because avoiding other individuals is the number one thing that you can do to avoid coming in contact with the coronavirus. You want to hear where people are, if people are coming up behind you, if someone's coming around the corner, etc. You definitely don't want to be just locked into your music, cutting off the outside world. That you want the opposite. You want to be completely aware of everything that's happening around you. So the best thing that you can do, obviously, is just going 100% audio free so you can focus on that. Personally, if I'm being honest, I can't do that. I rely too much on podcasts to get me through my run. So the next best thing I would say is to get some kind of earphones or headphones that allow you to hear what's going on around you. I've sang the praises of aftershocks forever, but I am appreciating them now more than ever. Just being able to continue to listen to podcasts or listen to music if it's a particularly brutal run, but while still being able to maintain that situational awareness, maintain the ability to hear what's going on around me, but also still listen to podcasts and things like that. So again, number one thing is obviously going to be to go completely audio free, but if you can't go audio free, just make sure you're at least turning the volume down on the headphones. You're not cutting off everything around you. You want to make sure you're maintaining awareness of everything that's going on. Number four isn't necessarily a safety precaution, but I did say at the top of this video that it is ways to continue your running routine through training. And I think one of the things people are struggling with most right now is motivation. And so my fourth tip is actually not a safety tip, but just a motivation tip, finding something to keep me motivated for this during this time. I 100% understand how difficult it is when races are canceled, you can't get together with your local running groups. It's totally, your motivation has to come pretty much completely from within. So I would just say find a source of motivation for you that's going to help you get out that door, especially if you opt to start running early in the mornings like I recommended. The two things that have been really helpful for me, Strava, being able to digitally connect with others who can motivate me through that platform. Obviously, we're being forced right now to search for opportunities to engage with our friends, engage with our family through virtual or digital platforms. And so Strava just is an excellent provider of that digital connection, that personalized connection through virtual means during this pandemic. The other thing that's helped me is signing up for virtual races. Again, it can definitely be difficult to find the motivation for a virtual race when you're not among the excitement and the hubbub of the actual race day, but signing up for the race itself and having something to train for is just one more thing that you can do for yourself to help motivate you, help push you to get out the door, and help push yourself to continue to run stronger, run harder, so that you can come out of this on the other side feeling much better, much stronger than you were at the start. And last but not least, as hard as it might be, depending on how dire the situation gets or how hard it is for you to get outside, let's say you live in downtown Manhattan and it is simply impossible for you to get outside and get out on a run without running into other people. If safety is your primary concern and you want to avoid all possibility of running into someone who might be carrying the virus, then unfortunately you have to find ways to stay indoors. But luckily for you, there are plenty of opportunities to do that. So hopefully, maybe you have some kind of treadmill or stationary bike or something like that where you can maintain your cardio training, maintain some sort of physical fitness activity inside your apartment. But if not, there are so many opportunities online or platforms that are offering their services for free. YouTube has a bunch of great workout classes. I know Peloton, you get a free trial for a certain amount of time, so you could try some of their classes as well. They have plenty of awesome opportunities and routines that you can test out. But even if those don't float your boat, I am now seeing a plethora of videos coming out of people who are running marathons, ultra marathons, around their backyard, around their living room. One of the founders of BibRave actually just ran, I don't remember exactly what the distance is, maybe just a couple miles, but in a stairwell, so doing it totally vertically. So there are a lot of opportunities to take on these fun challenges where you can actually complete these distance running feats inside the confines of your apartment or inside the confines of your house. So get creative with it. That's really the number one thing I think that we're all talking about during this quarantine time is we just have to get creative. We have to find creative solutions to be able to continue with as close to a normal life as we would hope. So there you have it. The short answer to is it safe to continue running during this pandemic is yes, as long as you are taking the proper precautions. Remember, the biggest thing that you have to avoid is just coming into contact or possibly coming into contact with someone who might be carrying the coronavirus. And the way to do that is to plan your runs accordingly so you're hopefully of just avoiding that human contact in general. If it cannot be avoided, then make sure you're taking into mind the recommendations of the CDC. Make sure you're wearing that face mask. Make sure you're washing your clothes as soon as you get home. Make sure you're washing your hands as soon as you come back inside the door. Anytime you're going outside, just make sure you're taking those precautions when you're coming back into your home. But as long as you're being safe, you're avoiding people, you're wearing the proper face coverings if you need to, you're maintaining those hygiene recommendations, you should be fine. And this really is a great opportunity to set some goals for yourself. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges in front of us, but we can use that to motivate us, like I said, just to hopefully come out of this thing on the other side much stronger and hopefully much faster than we were when it started. So I hope this helped you, just some little tips that you can use to hopefully maintain a safe running routine through this quarantine. As always, congratulations, especially congratulations on making it through however long you've been stuck at home, but it's officially the weekend. Cheers to Friday, cheers to a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.